Fuck. Neuronymous.
Hey, boys and girls, this is another episode of Neuronymous. How are we doing, my fellow neurotics? I'm really excited to have a blast from the past on the show. He hasn't been on the show before, but he's a blast from my past. Not sure if all of you guys know this, but I don't have a degree in broadcast journalism. Who to thunk it, right? No, I actually have a degree in print journalism. But, because honestly, I've just never been good at hard news. Like, I love writing feature stories and film reviews and music, and all kinds of, all kinds of criticism and stuff like that. I like being judgy. I like to be a judgy prick. Anyway, my guest for today, his name is Dr. Chris Allen, and he is a professor at the University of Nebraska at Omaha. He's the general manager of the UNO television station there. But just to get a little bit of background, when I came to college, when I was a young whippersnapper just going into college, I was undeclared. I had no idea what I wanted to be at that point or what I wanted to do, and so there's a special class that I had to take to figure out what my, major should be, what my interests were, all that stuff. But I just remember I took this class, it was like Journalism 101 or something like that, or, and I walked in and I was thinking, okay, all right, let's see how this is. Because I wanted something that was going to make me money, basically. And I do okay for myself now. I do pretty well as far as, career-wise. But it's not what I majored in. It's not what it's not what I wanted my livelihood to be. But anyway, I go into this class. It was my two wants as far as what I wanted it to be was either something in criminal law or something where I could write movie reviews all the time and get paid for it. So I went into this journalism class, and this guy comes in, and he was almost like the greatest showman. He was just like a ringmaster in this, and he would jump on top of desks, make proclamations. He was like my Professor Keating in Dead Poets Society. He was so inspiring, and I saw that. He had such passion for what the media and journalism, and so yeah, he wowed me, and coupled with that year, a movie called The Insider came out with Russell Crowe and Al Pacino, where Russell Crowe's the whistleblower, and Al Pacino, it always comes back to movies, and Al Pacino is like some producer for 60 Minutes, and it's about finding the truth about, cigarettes and making a statement on television about, the whistleblower, Russell Crowe. But coupled that with Dr. Allen, who's just absolutely like astounding as far as being an instructor. I mean, he captures your attention. He does it effortlessly. It's at least seemingly, and then, I remember going to his office, and he was just so, to talk about, it was about I don't know, it was about a paper or something, but I needed to talk to this guy about something, and he was just so mild-mannered. But when he's in the classroom setting, he's just like level 11, like, you know what I mean? He's just cranked to level 11, and I was just like, how the fuck does this man get so much energy about and be passionate about anything? I've never been passionate about anything really in my life at that point. I mean, I was just, I was a freshman in college. So, but coupled that with the movie The Insider, and I was just like, I want the truth. I want to seek the truth. I want to live the truth. I want to write the truth, and and I'm gonna be an innovative journalist. I'm gonna be the next Woodward and Bernstein, and I can do it because I'm 19 or 20. So, well, obviously that didn't pan out. And we'll get to that in a little bit. What's really I love is that I went on a trip to London, England, or whatever you want to call it, with him for a journalism trip with a group of people. But I don't know, I was like more into like the salacious stuff, like about the tabloids, and like I did love going to the BBC because they had a lot of shows that I used to watch, like on PBS and stuff like that they pair, like Murder, that kind of thing, and Masterpiece Theater. But anyway, but yeah, the guy to me in my head is a legend, and I'm really, really excited to have him on the show. But before I do that, that trip to London happened in June 2001, and 9/11 happened, and everything changed. Everything just changed. I think the way we see media, the way we look at the world, and and after taking classes after that, and I actually did end up taking a second class with Dr. Allen, and I can, and he was, as always, animated and passionate, but I feel like maybe something had changed. There's just like a little bit of difference in him than when I first saw him. Maybe it's because, I'd been, I'd taken that initial class when I was a freshman, and I took that final class when I was a senior, but I'm absolutely just so psyched to talk to him. I'm going to try not to come out across as a complete ignoramus, which I am wont to do sometimes, but I will, it's going to, as he's in Omaha, so it's going to be a Skype interview. So with that, in just a few moments, I will be dialing him up, and we will get the show on the road. All right, now we're good. All right, hi. Sorry about that. I usually have my music cues pulled, recording on my music cues. Yeah. So I have to say it's awesome seeing you. I feel like it's been forever. So it's been a long time. I was talking about how I was when I was in. When I first got to UNO, I had no idea what I wanted to be at that point. It was something involving writing or doing something with the law. I didn't know how to mesh those, but then I forgot what the name of the actual class, like Journalism 101. We'll just call it that, right? And I was just like, you sealed the deal, man. Like it was like I was just so like you were like my Keating, Professor Keating from Dead Poet Society. Like you'd get on the table, you'd just make these proclamations, and it was just such a wonderful experience that I was just like, this is it. This is what I want to do. So I just wanted to right out the bat say thank you. For that being said, I kind of failed at being a journalist, but. I probably should have done broadcasting instead of like print journalism, because obviously this seems to be taking off, and I guess I'm doing something right. But yeah. So I mean, you're obviously you're in your office, I'm assuming, right? And do you still teach that introduction to communications? And
No, I haven't taught it for a long time, and I just found out that I'm going to teach it this
Hey, there you go.
So now I have to go back and get the books again and
Yeah.
brush up on all of that stuff. So,
But now you have energy
I
drinks.
haven't taught it for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah, I was gonna say now you have energy drinks, so you have something to kind of give you that gusto now.
There'll be with coffee with me in the
There you
classroom.
go, coffee. Yeah, yeah. No, so it's funny. We went to London. I remember that, and that was like literally. All right, I should probably say that marrying my wife is like the best thing that ever happened to me. But I have to say that London was a very close second. It was like such an amazing experience, and like I just remember just going there, and I mean I drank a lot, you know,
Yes.
but yeah, no, I mean it was just such an amazing experience, and like people are always like, what's if you need to go to your happy place, where do you go to? And I'm like, there was a field in Cambridge that was just really grassy, and like there are like those boats that you people can row and stuff like that, and I just remember laying down there. That's always my happy place. So but yeah, what really is weird is that like we went there, I think it was in June, right? And it was in 2000.
In May. It was in the middle of May.
Middle of May. Okay, all right. So, yeah, my dates are horrible. Middle of May, and it was in 2001, and then everything changed a few months later. Because yeah, 9/11 happened, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
I just it boggles my mind that we, because not just travel, but the whole scope, I'd say, of journalism. I mean, everything is. I mean, it just changed the way I think we all look at the world, and I mean, when 9/11 happened, you being a journalist, I mean, did it change the way you taught? Did it change the way you know, to, write and see the world?
You know, I'm gonna spin around here a little bit.
You need a wide angle lens. I'm joking.
Yes, actually I do. It didn't change the way that I taught, except for a while as a worldview. But really, journalism is a constantly changing
Sure.
environment.
Yeah.
And 9/11 brought forth a lot of emotional stories.
Sure.
Really, the assassination of President Kennedy did. The
Yeah.
assassination of Martin Luther King did.
Yeah.
Watergate certainly did. That changed journalism enormously. So
Yeah.
we've got these periods, all along of
Yeah.
how is journalism changing? How does it evolve? What do we teach?
Right.
And really, what we teach more than anything else is how to write for the audience, how to write for the platform.
Sure.
Back in 2001, when you were there,
Yeah.
I taught TV news. My students turned in TV news stories. Now they turn in TV news stories and something to put on the website, because every television station requires people to write for their website too, and there's two different writing styles. And in fact, all of our journalism majors now go through our capstone class that includes TV news and online journalism.
Right.
Because everybody has to know everything. If you go to work for a newspaper these
Right.
days, number of them, but if you go to work for a newspaper today, you better know how to shoot. You will be an advantage if you can shoot video and edit video and even put together a 90-second package like you do for television and put it on the TV website. You got to know those things. On the newspaper website, print is no longer just print journalism.
Right.
And TV no longer just TV journalism.
Yeah.
And then you have the whole entrepreneurial journalism thing of creating your own, doing podcasts,
Right.
doing other print content that you actually, some people are figuring out how to make a living with this stuff these days.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to do it, but there are people who are figuring this out. And it's not just one thing, it's even still photography.
Yeah.
How do you compose a picture? How do you edit a piece down to 90 seconds? How do you make sure that your video is matching your audio? What is all of that? And then
Right.
go to the print content to supplement it. That better be well written, or your audience is gone like that. You have to know all of these skills now.
Yeah, and you got to make sure. I mean, with audience, I feel like audiences, their attention spans are just constantly just like zip. I mean, I think people used to be a lot, and maybe I'm wrong. People used to be, for me, like everybody, I have to. I know that I have to just make sure that I'm constantly putting content on my podcast so people will continue listening. It's not necessarily all newsworthy. I mean, I do this podcast because I want to learn about things. I'm kind of selfish. I just like to learn. Talk to people that interest me, do things. I have somebody that's going to be teaching. That's going to be coming on in May, and she's like teaching. She's an instructor, but she does stuff on like proposed PTSD and that kind of thing. And so I mean, it's just like my goal is to try and do what I do because it interests me, but I want to make it in a way that it makes other people interested in it. And to your credit, that's really, you did. And I'm not trying to be a fanboy or gush all over you, but like if I hadn't taken that class, like I probably wouldn't be. I mean, I don't know what I would have done. I mean, maybe I would have been a lawyer. I don't know, but like it just clicked to me. I was like, this is it, man. But I remember my senior year, I took that final class with you, and I'm gonna be just completely candid. By the time my senior year came around, I was pretty knee deep in addiction, and I remember I was getting. And this, I was getting stoned a lot. And I remember I was constantly late with papers to your class. And then you and I were walking down the path past the registrar building. I remember this specifically. And I just said, man, there just aren't enough hours in the day. And you look at me and you're like, that's the worst excuse I've ever heard in my life. And I just remember that, and I was just like, I told my friend that, and he was like, "Hal, really? You said that?" And I was like, "Well, it seemed I mean, it makes sense to me." And then they're like, "You can't say that to a professor. That's the whole point of assignments and making deadlines. Like, there aren't enough hours in the day." And like, I just remember you just gave me this like look, and you literally said, "That is the most terrible excuse I've ever heard." And it still gives me a laugh, and I don't know why, But yeah, I mean,
It's the curse of the journalist. It's the curse of the journalist.
Yeah.
Al, because we all write on deadline. I mean, journalism is a deadline business.
Yeah.
And so we all procrastinate until a deadline, and then there's not enough time to get it done.
Yeah.
There is plenty of time if you portion out your work. So it is the worst excuse in the world.
It was terrible, and like.
There are ways around that.
Yeah. Eventually I did, for what it's worth, I did graduate with honors, so that was cool. I don't know how far that got me, but I've written for a few different. I wrote for this online, not online. It was like for an underground newspaper, or what do you want to call it? It was called the Omaha Pulp.
Alternative.
Yeah, alternative. Thank you.
Okay.
I need more coffee. It was called the Omaha Pulp, and it was around for about 2 or 3 years. Leslie Prisbell, I think Marshall Prisbell's ex-wife, was running it, and then eventually she went away, and I became the entertainment editor. I think honestly, at the end of the day, as much as I loved journalism, I think my ultimate goal was just to like learn more about people. I love writing. Like, if I'm gonna write, I want to write about do feature stories, and I want to write critique and stuff like that. And and there's, I think there's a good number of people that are in journalism that think that that's what they're just magically is gonna appear. But that's what I've come to learn is, a lot of newspapers already have that. They have critiques and critics and feature stories. I think it's just a matter of finding like the right exact niche to write about. You know what I mean? And
there are a couple of problems there. Number one, a lot of newspapers do already have
yeah,
so it's a hierarchy. You
yeah,
work your way up to that,
right,
that you can do it. But
right,
number two, especially in the newspaper world, the staffs are shrinking
yeah,
so much that the newspapers are jettisoning the people who are not. I don't want to say not necessary, but
right.
the main job is covering news,
Right.
and not feature stuff, not critiques and things like that. The World Herald here still does have those people, but
right.
there are fewer and fewer, and some of the smaller newspapers, those are the first ones who are, we need a smaller staff, and you still have to cover school board and city council and police and accidents and murders and those kinds of things.
Right.
And in your spare time, do your for us, and so that's kind of the way it is. Or go to the concert, or
Yeah.
and then they syndicate the movie reviews. They just buy the syndicated movie reviews or things like that.
Yeah, I wrote for a couple newspapers, small town in Minnesota, which is where I'm at now. I'm in Mankato. I wrote an article. I got freelance to write an article about a band, two music artists. At least one of them has been on the show. But yeah, I've learned that I'm just. And maybe this is terrible, but I'll just say it. Hard news it's not for me, and then it is what it is, and I think for me, I just, like I said, it's all about learning new things, and that, like you said, it's shrinking, but the one thing I learned about with writing in small towns is there's this very almost cultish, cliquish, small town mentality. There was a lot of racism in the small town. At least one of them that I work for. I got told by my boss that I needed to be the publisher. Then I needed to be his words exactly. He goes, "You need to start interviewing more white people," and I'm like, "Whoa, what?" And the reason being was because I was doing man on the street interviews, because that was what we did for this paper. We just kind of like go up to a random person that lives in town and be like, "Hey, what do you like about this town? What's your favorite part? What do you like?" And it was this Hispanic gentleman, and I said to him, if there was anything that you could change in I'll just say the name, St. James, Minnesota, what would you be? And he goes, it'd be really nice if the cops would stop, pulling me and my people, over, just for the hell of it. And I printed that, and then the apparently that really, put a fire under us, and the I guess the sheriff basically said, well, this guy has a record of, doing this and that and the other, and it turns out that they got the wrong person's record, and and they wrote a letter to our paper. But yeah, I got from the publisher. He just looks at me after that whole incident, and he goes, "You need to start interviewing more white people." He also referred to me as a little Jew at one point, so that was that's I kind of saw things kind of shutting down after that point for me anyway. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I guess at the end of the day, what I've learned is know your audience. You know what I mean? Like kind of what you said.
I taught you that from the very beginning.
Yep.
That's one of the things that is fundamental.
Yep. Because, if you're writing for like an alternative newspaper, I mean, for a small period of time, I was a conservative because I was living under my parents' roof, and when you're with your parents, that's kind of like you that's what and then once I started majoring in journalism and then going on to do alternative newspapers, I was like, wow, no, this is ridiculous. What's going on in this country right now with at the time is W. and now it's Voldemort right now, or somebody called the
He just declared a national emergency. Did you know that? He just now declared a national emergency.
Why? Did it because he couldn't get to his Twitter in time, or what?
No, so he could build the wall.
Oh,
he signed a bill that Congress passed last night.
Yeah.
And he declared a national emergency and said he's going to build the wall because of the national emergency. And he's not going to. It's not. I mean, even if he gets elected, it will be tied up in the courts until he's out of office. It's going to take at least 6 years.
Yeah.
To get this sorted out. It's just not going to fly.
Yeah. I just like the day that he got elected. I all I know is my wife was just like, I think she started crying. You know, and the weird thing is, you know, and I don't want to spend too much time on Trump, but let's just face it, it's what we talk about now is like the day he got inaugurated, my wife and I, we had our we basically, our failed adoption happened right that day, the day he got. So we should have taken that as maybe a bad omen. but yeah, I mean, I had somebody who is Muslim, and she ran for office in Mankato, and she won the primary, and it was amazing. Her name is, you know, is Fardosa Jama, and it was really cool because, you know, she was like, we were talking about my parents who are diehard conservatives, right? And you know how I'm the opposite of that. And she goes, well, what are you gonna do now? And I was like, what do you mean? She goes, well, you're in it. You're in the media now. You get, you know, what are you gonna do? Because my parents are, I hate saying this, but they don't like Muslims because they're very pro-Israel and they just think Muslims are terrorists. And yeah, I'm probably throwing them under the bus. I usually do. I wouldn't have a podcast if I didn't throw my parents under the bus, I think, at some point in every episode. But yeah, they were basically like, you know, I told them, you know, they, like, one day my mom was like, because they built a mosque right around, you know, center, like 132nd. Yeah, and that was a big thing. And it's right near my parents, and my mom was like, somebody should spray paint that. And I was like, are you, pardon my language, are you fucking kidding me? Like, you know, and what's sad is that, like, I love my parents, you know, but as a, you know, coming from a journalism, you know, standpoint, and as well as a, you know, humane standpoint, like, it's hard to reconcile. My wife and I found it very hard to reconcile, you know, the conservative mentality versus the liberal mentality. And, you know, my parents, whenever we're over there in Omaha, they're constantly watching Fox News, and I'm just like, it's hard to, you know, it's like, part of me is just like, can you just turn that off, please? Like, it's just, you know, I know that there's like you said, know your audience, and there's an audience for Fox News, sadly. Yeah. Right, yeah. And, but no, this gal that I was interviewing, she looked at me straight up and she was like, so what's your, you know, what's your plan on, you know, making change? And I'm like, what do you mean making change? She goes, well, you're official, you know, you've got this podcast, you have a voice, you know, you have a platform. What are you going to do to help curb this kind of hatred and this kind of bigotry and, you know, this you know, mentality that, you know, all Muslims are terrorists and stuff like that? And, you know, I didn't have an answer, because the thing is, you know, that for me, that's very problematic, because, I have a small idea of, I've got 39 or 40 subscribers to my podcast, which isn't a lot, but I have people that are listening around the world. I can see, I'm able to tell that, you know, people are in Slovakia are listening to me, which is funny because my mom says to me, "Do they speak English in Slovakia?" And I was on the phone and I was like, "Mom, are you kidding? Like, this isn't like Star Trek. We don't wear like one of those universal, like, translator things. Of course, there's somebody in Slovakia that speaks English, and clearly they're listening to my podcast. Okay, go read a book, look at an atlas. Go look. It's just I don't know how to deal with it. But enough about me. How are you doing, man? I mean, I've been talking about me for like the last 30 minutes now, and and I feel like a complete stooge. But I mean, what have you been up to? I mean, in the last, I guess 17, 20 years.
15 years?
Yeah.
I've been up to so much, and a lot of it touches on what you have been talking
blabbering about.
I'm about to make my 17th trip, I think, now to England with a group of students. I have 13 that will be going with me in May this time. I've only missed. We started the trip in 2001, and you were on the second trip. And so and I almost quit after that one. No,
I would have too.
I've only missed twice. I missed once in 2012 because I was teaching overseas in the country of Oman.
Oh.
It is on the Arabian Peninsula.
Okay.
Fulbright there, and my wife and I lived there for almost 10 months. And while I was teaching, so I wasn't back in time to go on the trip, and I hadn't taught the class, and Professor Riley took the group over, and then I missed a few years ago because I just did a crummy job of recruiting. I didn't have enough students to go. I only had 2 students.
Really? Oh man, that sucks.
Yeah. It's rebounded since then, and apparently I've done a little better job of recruiting. So I've been doing that. As I mentioned, I taught for a year in Oman at Sultan Qaboos University. Qaboos is the Sultan of Oman.
Wow.
And lived there, worked there, made friends there. The great thing about moving to a country, I mean, I've traveled to places, but the great thing about living in a country is you have to buy groceries, and you have to go to restaurants, and you make friends, and you travel the country, and you do sightseeing, and you learn a couple of words of the language, and meet just the most wonderful, spectacular people ever. And people ask me why Oman, and the real reason is when my wife and I talked about doing this, we decided that we wanted to go to a country where we could learn as much as I could teach, and I learned much more than I taught. I didn't know anything about Islamic culture or Arab culture or the Middle East, except what I had read in the press. And the press has. I'm not here to disparage the press, but there is a limited view. It has to do with conflict, it has to do with oil, it has to do with economics, and doesn't have much to do with the social aspects of life of the peninsula. That's really what we learned. And while we were there, we traveled to Egypt for a week. We'd spent a week in Nepal. We'd spent 4 days in Istanbul and in Turin Alzira. My wife spent a week in India. Then we spent about 4 or 5 days in Bulgaria. So we did a lot while we were there. And it was great. This summer we're actually going to Morocco, which was the one country that we wanted to go to, and we didn't. We ran out of time, quite honestly. All over the country of Oman, and it was spectacular. Also been in the last 3 years. The grant just ended in September, October. The grant ended in October. We working with in the school have been working with 2 Afghan. This is the second project that I've been involved in with Afghan faculty members. I was involved in one from 2010 to 2013. Working with the Faculty of Communication Journalism at Kabul University. This one was working with the same faculty at Kabul University and then a faculty in Balkh University in the north, in a town called Mazar-e-Sharif in Balkh province, which is north, right up against with Uzbekistan. So I've been to Kabul 4 times since 2010. The last time was in 2016, so it's been a few years now. Just right about now, in 2016, so it's been 3 years since I've been there. I had a chance to go not too long ago, but because of classes and some other things, I couldn't get it done. But working with those faculties, we had to. I can't take my colleagues to Afghanistan. I don't mind going, but I'm not comfortable taking my colleagues there. So
Right.
I did. But we did, and we couldn't bring them here. There were some restrictions on the grant. We couldn't bring them here. So we met in India mostly. So we made many trips to India of a week or 10 days and worked with them. Intense workshops, very intense, very wearying, very. They were exhausting trips. We made a couple of trips to Dubai when we just got tired of India. Which sounds strange, but take that for what it's worth. We did get tired. We were mostly in Delhi and Mumbai, and so we had this really intense exchange, and so that's what I've been up to. I've been doing a lot of travel to some very specific places, and I was notified 2 weeks ago today that I am sharing the inaugural award for faculty excellence in global engagement.
Hey, that's awesome.
I and another faculty will share the award, and I am enormously humbled because
Mazel tov.
I'm getting an award, but boy, there are so many people that got me to the place where I could get that award, and my colleagues, my support people, my wife who lets me do all of these travels, and
your wife is super lit. I remember her. She's such a nice lady. She's very warm.
You did get to meet her. That's the only time she came to London on that trip. At the very end of the trip, she came to London. It's the only time she's come. Excuse me. She's the only time she's come on the trip with me.
She knew I was there.
Comes to England, and everybody asks her. She said, "Yeah, you go with your husband?" And she said, "Well, no." And they're confused, and she said, "But he's working. We can't go off and do touristy things. He's working.
Right.
He's with his students all day. It's not a vacation for him.
Right.
It's work.
It's work.
And no, it doesn't make sense." So I think what we'll do in the next few years, we're going to go to Morocco this summer. So that's pretty cool.
Nice.
But so in the next couple of years before I retire from all of this, probably what we'll do is have her come like she did at the end of the trip, and then I'll just stay on for an extra couple of weeks.
Right.
Put students on the plane, send them home, and she and I will then do a vacation.
Right. A much needed one.
Many of the things that I've seen. So that's what I've been up to. I've been teaching. I am a general manager of the TV station in addition to teaching.
Yeah.
Which is not really an over-the-air TV station. It's the production studio and
Sure.
things like that.
I get it.
So I've been doing that. It's been time-consuming. It's been a career. This is my 23rd year here.
Wow.
I think it's 17 trips to London, or will be 17 trips to London. And a chance to travel to and meet the most fantastic people. Like the colleagues that we had from Afghanistan,
right,
are just the most amazing people. And teaching in the worst circumstances,
sure,
some of the most dire circumstances. One of the faculty members that we work with in Afghanistan, when you go on the Kabul University campus, it's a very safe campus. I've been there 5 or 6 times. I've never felt unsafe on campus. The students are amazing. They're just the neatest people. They're so eager to talk to anyone from the outside,
right?
But especially Americans, and they want to practice their English, and they're so eager to talk. But going onto the campus, if you're in a vehicle, they stop the vehicle. They have everybody get out. You're kind of searched and patted down, and then they run a mirror under the vehicle.
Oh my gosh.
Well, one of the professors, who didn't have to get out of his car because they know him, I mean, he's not, but they ran a mirror under his car, and they found a bomb. Somebody had put a bomb.
Oh my God.
Oh my God is right. And so we saw him in September, and he was doing a presentation on, his teaching style, and wanted some critique and feedback on his teaching style.
Yeah.
He's making a joke about it. He's making a joke about
a bomb.
Sticky bomb under his car. Because you have to. If you don't, you'll cry.
Yeah.
It's a way of life. And I'm sitting there thinking, my God, these people are making a joke that his car had a bomb in it.
Jesus.
Thinking about it. One of his colleagues did. He was talking about using humor.
Yeah.
And his colleague said, "Well, your jokes are so bad." He had started it. He said Fanusa's jokes are so bad in his classroom that it's prolonging the war. So there's one. And Fanus comes back and he says, "Well, yours are so bad they tried to bomb you."
Oh my God.
And they laughed about it.
Well,
it wasn't said. It was said in jest. It was a laughter. All the faculty laughed about it. They thought it was great.
Well, I guess to a certain extent, I mean, as horrible as that is, I mean, if you can't laugh at like the worst things, sometimes like you just have to kind of like lift up your hands and be like, I guess that happened, and I have to make the best out of it, And
we were doing an exercise with them at one time, and one of my colleagues was running the exercise, and she was talking about breaking the ice every class. How do you start your class? What do you say to your students? And one of the female faculty members said, "Well, many of my classes I start by saying, is everybody in your family okay? Has anybody in your family been killed?"
Right.
I can't even imagine that. I mean, I can't even imagine starting a class even with that sentiment.
Yeah.
We live such a sheltered life in the United States. I mean, one may not think so, but we live such a sheltered life compared to the rest of the world. I mean, that's really the value of travel, and that's really the value of getting to know people from another society. When I was in Oman, I had a colleague teaching there who was from Iran, and he invited me to his country. He said, you should come, take some time, my wife and I. And I told him, this was 8 years ago now, 7 years ago now. I told him, I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable coming to your country, but here's the thing. I know my government doesn't like your government, and your government doesn't like my government, and I'm just wary enough not to be comfortable. However, I know because of the traveling I've done, if I came to Iran and got in and everything was fine, and I got to your village or your town, I would be embraced. I would be welcomed. I would be celebrated. We would be treated in such a grand fashion.
Mm-hmm. Sure.
As people do. But I learned that all the way in Russia in 1991, my first trip to Russia.
Yeah.
I learned a lesson, and it was just like, holy cow, my government, their government, and it was still a communist nation then.
Right.
Gorbachev was still in charge.
Right.
Their government is not their people.
Right.
My government is not the United States.
Absolutely not.
It sounds pretty hostile to immigrants. We have, 300 million people who are not hostile to immigrants.
Right.
Right. And that's the difference. And once you begin to learn those lessons, you begin to learn the humanity,
right,
the human aspect of global relationships. Because, without that, we lose sight.
Right.
You hear about the terrible things going on in Venezuela, and they are dire.
Yeah.
But I have a pretty good feeling that if I went there, that people would
be kind.
Open their houses,
sure,
and give me food and drink and things like that.
I remember there was a story you told me, not me, but the class, and I think it was Russia. I could be wrong, but like you guys were like in the cold, and like this family brought you in, and like you didn't know the language, and they didn't really know your language, but you guys just had this, and like they fed you, and it was just you guys didn't necessarily know the languages at all, but like you guys just felt like you guys just were able to communicate just by body language and just being the kindness,
My very first trip, when we got off the train,
Yep.
we were out in Siberia, but it was summertime.
Yes, Siberia. Yep.
We were out in Siberia, and I was, staying with a family. It was a Sister Cities exchange,
Yeah.
and even though I went as a reporter for the public radio station that I was news director of in North Dakota, we ended up at the platform, and I went home with my family, and they had told me on the platform that they didn't have a translator right away for us, but one would be there soon. So we went back to their apartment, and we sat, and the mom, Valia, spoke a few words of English. The dad spoke less English, and I spoke almost no Russian. I could say the very basics, but I had a Russian and English dictionary with me, and between the three of us and the dictionary and a few pictures and gestures, we had the most wonderful conversation before the translator got there.
Boom.
And it just, again, I was aware enough of what was going on at that moment to sit back just in amazement.
Mm-hmm.
When later in the evening, when I was by myself in my room and reflecting on it, the absolute power of human nature to overcome adversity in communication. We need to communicate, and when we really need or want to, we can get it done, whether we share a language or not.
Yeah, and I just remember and it's so weird. I mean, it's so long ago, but that story resonated with me so much. I haven't been to. I've been to London. I've been to Mexico. Well, Cancun. But I mean, I've never been to a place where like I didn't necessarily where I wasn't familiar with because Cancun. I mean, it's Mexico, but it's pretty touristy, but I mean. That's your story. That story just resonated with me so much, and I've always said since then that like if the world just knew how to find a way to communicate better, not necessarily laws blah blah, but just communicate, talk to find a way to get their messages across in such a manner that's not violent and not hostile or full of machismo, we would be in a much better place. But one of my favorite classes that you had, and this is just off the topic because that's just how I roll. I remember there was a class, and you opened the class up with. It was completely. We were all waiting for you to start. You said there's absolutely no chance ever that the local news will say the word "fuck," and you said the word, and I remember I was in the front row next to my friend John, and I looked, and I was like, "Oh my god!" It was the first time I'd ever heard a professor say say the word "fuck," and I just like I was like I was like beside myself, and I was like, God, this guy's amazing. Which is I don't know what that says about me. That like the big test is like, can he say the word "fuck" and does it resonate with me? But no, like I'm sure I came across. I knew I was going to come across as kind of a big ignoramus on this episode, but like I really appreciate you being on here, and you're like I said, what for better or worse, like I said, I definitely say, as far as being like a hardcore journalist, that just it hasn't. I tried it, it didn't work out, but to the credit. Yeah, it's not. But you know, at the same time, to a certain, you know, at least in the print journalism world, you know what I mean. I do write feature stories, and some I write opinion pieces and stuff like that. So that, you know, that part's there. But you know, to your credit, like you inspired me to go on this journey, and you know, whatever the outcome was, I don't think I'd be here if it weren't for you, man. You know, like you got me started.
That's flattering.
Well, it's the truth, man. Like I mean, I can't say you know you introduced me to my wife or anything like that, but like, but like you know, like I said, I had a you know I've had a lot of struggles in my life, and you know and you know it's just I'm very humbled that you would have make the time as long as as how you know like you said it's been like 15, 17 years that you would make the time to come on my show, and that means the world to me. It really does. And like I said, you know, for better or worse, with my journalism career, you know, I'm doing something. I'm in the media now. You know, I'm doing something different than what I originally was trained for. But you know what? I'm here.
Actually, I trained to be a radio news reporter. I'm
Yep.
doing something really, really different from that now.
Yeah, yeah.
So yes, we do that.
We do that. Well, hey, man, thank you again for being on the show, and I wish you and your wife just lots of you know lots of good you know juju, as I like to say, and you know just I hope you guys have a wonderful trip, and again, thank you for being on the show. It's been a real pleasure and an honor to talk with you one on one.
Been my pleasure too. It's been great to catch up.
It has. Well, hey, you have a wonderful weekend, and thanks for being on the show. Okay.
Thanks for the invitation. Thanks.
You got it. Bye, Dr. Allen.
Bye bye.
Wow, what a treat. I mean, he the man is brilliant, and I'm sure, as I said, I came across as a big dork and a big ignoramus about things, and you know. But the thing is, you know, like I said, I mean, there's a reason he has a doctorate and I don't, you know. But yeah, I just it was it's been an honor talking with Dr. Chris Allen, and he you know like I said, for better or worse, he got me to where I am, and you know I'm living my life, you know, and I may not be doing a lot of writing, but I've got you guys, you know, I've got my audience, and you know we you know talk about this has been about what 18 years that like you said 17 18 years, you know, and yeah, it's been a ride, and the rides as always it happened one day at a time, man.
Neuronymous.